to lead. Dr. Sophie Saidi is an accomplished scholar practitioner in international relations, global governance, and conflict resolution. Dr. Sophie Saidi obtained her PhD in international relations from Geneva, Switzerland, and has been a member of the Globecraft Institute at the Geneva School of Diplomacy. Dr. Saidi is a member of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Please welcome Dr. Saidi.
Distinguished colleagues, friends, and fellow advocates of a free Iran. After this morning's powerful testimonies and insightful discussions, our shared purpose stands clearer than ever to ensure that Iran's transition to a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear republic is not only possible, but inevitable. Earlier today, Iranian experts and scholars examined the regime's deepening crisis, the leadership role of women in the resistance, the roadmap for transferring power to the people, and the expanding influence of Iran's courageous youth. We also heard messages from political prisoners and resistance units inside Iran. Voices that remind us that the struggle for freedom is alive in every corner of the nation. The message from every panel and from inside Iran itself is unmistakable. The solution to Iran's crisis lies in regime change by the people and their organized resistance. The conditions for change exist. The momentum exists. And critically, the democratic alternative exists. The alternative is the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Prepared today to guide a peaceful transition grounded in a clear roadmap and a program for the post-revolutionary period, all rooted in the 10-point plan of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. History teaches us that revolutions are not won by passion alone. They succeed through readiness and structure, through ideals translated into governance. That is precisely why the NCRI is not just relevant, it is indispensable. As a scholar of international relations and global governance, my research on revolutions in Latin America in particular has shown that when dictatorships fell, movements without unified leadership often dissolved into chaos. But whenever disciplined, principled alternatives existed, transitions had a chance to succeed. The NCRI embodies that principle. It is the only organized, tested, and legitimate coalition capable of leading Iran through a peaceful transfer of power. Over more than 4 decades, it has built a parliament in exile, drafted a charter for a democratic republic, and demonstrated a record of political consistency rooted in sacrifice and service. For years, the regime has tried and failed to demonize the MEK, the principal organization within the NCRI. Today, a new generation of Iranians, brave, connected, and idealistic, is joining the resistance in greater numbers than ever before. At the heart of this movement stands the leadership of women who have redefined what it means to lead, proving that equality is not a byproduct of democracy, but it is its foundation. Under the leadership of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, the NCRI has become a model of moral clarity paired with strategic effectiveness. The Iranian people are ready for change. The NCRI is ready to lead it. And the world must be ready to recognize it. Distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker, a leading voice for freedom, democratic and secular Iran. For decades, she has inspired millions, both inside and outside Iran, through her unwavering vision of an Iran built on equality, justice, and human rights. Her leadership stands as a beacon of hope for all who resist tyranny and as a powerful call to conscience for the international community to stand with the Iranian people in their pursuit of freedom. Please join me in warmly welcoming the President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, who is joining us from Paris.
عزیزم و صحبت‌های بسیار بسیار سخاوتمندانه تو. مرسی. هموطنان، اشرف نشان‌ها و شخصیت‌های گرامی، وزیر پومپئو، سفیر کالاسنس و آقایان برکو و پاتریک کندی، به همه شما درود می‌فرستم که ساعت‌های طولانی این اجتماع ارزشمند رو پیش بردید. تشکیل این شرایط حساس و خطیر فعلی ذی‌قیمته. همچنین به خواهران و برادرانمون در اشرف 3 که از راه دور در این اجتماع شرکت دارند درود می‌فرستم. دوستان گرامی، امروز 6مین سالگرد قیام بزرگ آبان است. به شهیدان و قهرمانان آن قیام ادای احترام می‌کنیم، به پا می‌خیزیم و به یاد آنها دست می‌زنیم. تشکیل این اجتماع فرصت مغتنمی است برای بازاندیشی درباره مهمترین موضوعی که مسئله اساسی زمانه ما، اینکه تغییر در ایران چگونه رژیم که برای حفظ قدرت اولویت تام و تمامش سرکوب و غارت و گنداندگی، همین استراتژی تغییر ناپذیر اما با سیاق اضمحلال شده است. پایگاه کمونیسم پیر رفته و از هر جهت فرسوده و نابود. در جامعه ایران اکثریت بزرگ زنان و جوانان که یا شغلی ندارند و یا کم درآمد هستند نیروی قیام هستند. ساکنان طلبی آبادها و خانه‌های سقف زده یعنی 1/4 تا 1/3 جمعیت کشور یک انبار بارود شدند و شکستند. نیروی کار ایران که یکی از ارزانترین نیروهای کار شناخته شده برای به هم زدن این نظم غارتگر پا برجاست و مردمی که زندگی اونها با تورم شدید و با قحطی آب و خاموشی برق در هم کوبیده شده مترصد به زیر کشیدن رژیم آخوندی هستند. تراژدی خودسوزی جوان مظلوم اهوازی، تراژدی خودسوزی جوان مظلوم اهوازی احمد والدی نمونه گویایی از جامعه آماده انفجار مردم ایران است. آنچنان که رژیم سراسیمه عقب نشینی کرد و شهردار خودش رو کنار گذاشت. بله، به هر جا که نگاه کنید تخاصم شدید جامعه ایران با رژیم حاکم غوغا می کند. این مردم به جان آمده، این کارگران و معلمان و پرستاران و بازنشسته ها و هزاران حرکت اعتراضی اونها در هر سال رود خروشانی است در پی سرنگونی رژیم آخوندی. به دریایی از خون نگاه کنید که میان مردم با رژیم حاکم جاری است، از جمله اعدام بیش از 100,000 تن از اعضا و هواداران مقاومت مردم ایران. از دل همین شرایط است که در ایران معاصر شهرهای شورشی پدیدار شده و از این شرایط است که نیروی سازمان یافته مقاومت به صورت کانونهای شورشی به پا خاسته است. در برابر این خطرات بزرگ رژیم یارای دست زدن به هیچ گونه اصلاحات سیاسی و اجتماعی را ندارد. سقوط پی در پی اقتصاد کشور کنترل ناپذیر شده و به رغم زیانهای بزرگ جنگ افروزی در منطقه و ادامه برنامه اتمی برای رژیم، خامنه‌ای قادر نیست از اون دست
Khamenei is unable to change course.
تغییر این رژیم ضروری است.
The inevitable conclusion is that regime change is necessary. But the critical question remains, how and by what means will this change be achieved?
اصلاح این رژیم اصلا متصور است؟
Is it conceivable to reform this regime? Should one wait for it to become more rational? Is it even possible to contain it? Is the answer war or foreign intervention, or is an entirely different path and strategy required? It may be useful for this distinguished audience to recall a historical fact. The MEK were the first to undertake extensive efforts to reform this regime during the first 2.5 years of its rule. And what was the regime's response? Its answer was the killing of at least 54 MEK members in the streets, shot or stabbed to death. And this was before the nationwide massacre of MEK members that began in 1981. Years later, a current composed of officials responsible for torture and execution in the 1980s resurfaced, this time masked as reformists or advocates of moderation. The individual who Khamenei selected as president today is a product of that very current. During his brief presidency, more than 2,300 people have been executed. And everyone remembers that during the great nationwide uprising of December 2017, the demonstrators in Tehran declared the end of the reformist narrative. Consigning that entire current to its historic grave. Let us now turn to another historic lesson. The policy of appeasement pursued by Western governments, a policy with a long, bitter, and cautionary record. For 4 decades, its advocates claimed they could moderate or contain the regime. Yet in practice, they granted Khamenei the time and space to move dangerously close to a nuclear weapon. This policy paved the way for the expansion of fundamentalism, and most disastrously, it blocked the path to democratic change. Among the most damaging consequences was the unjust blacklisting of the MEK as a terrorist, the bombing of MEK bases along the Iran-Iraq border, and the disarmament of the National Liberation Army, all carried out at the direct request of the clerical regime. As the Washington Post noted at the time, these actions shifted the geopolitical balance of the region in favor of the mullahs. The question then is this: what is the practical solution? And does a force for change, an alternative capable of carrying it out, exist? 21 years ago in the European Parliament, I stated that the solution for Iran lies neither in appeasement nor in war. Rather, it is the third option: the overthrow of the regime by the Iranian people and their organized resistance. I also made clear that appeasement only encourages the regime in its policies and in the end forces war upon Western countries. This prediction has now been proven in every detail. The war that erupted a few months ago demonstrated unequivocally that the policy of appeasement has failed, and it has shown that war will not bring about the regime's overthrow. Today, long-standing policies that presented themselves as solutions, which in fact obstructed the real solution, have collapsed. But the passage of history is finally opening eyes and ears to an approach that has been systematically concealed and censored. The authentic, popular,
مستقل و آزادی بخش.
independent, and liberating solution.
در تندبادهای
The very
کشتار
path
و قتل عام
that has
و
endured
شکنجه‌سازی.
with
تا
strength
برجا
and dignity
سربلند
through waves of executions, massacre, and demonization campaigns. This solution reflects the long-standing aspirations of the Iranian people to reject all forms of dictatorship, whether monarchical or theocratic. Based on repeated experience in recent years, the defining feature of the serial theatrics staged by the remnants of the Shah's dictatorship has been to strengthen the mullahs in their fight against any democratic alternative.
خواست مردم ایران انقلاب دموکراتیک و برقراری یک جمهوری دموکراتیک است و به آن دست خواهند
But the will of the Iranian people is to overthrow the regime and create a democratic alternative, and they will reach that.
هموطنان عزیز، امروز سالگرد قیام
Dear
بزرگ
compatriots,
آبان است. قیامی که در سال
Today marks the anniversary of the
98
Great November uprising of
پایه‌های استبداد
2019,
دینی را به لرزه درآورد.
which shook the very foundation of the religious dictatorship. At the time, Hassan Rouhani, then the regime's president, declared that the protests were organized,
و مسلح.
planned,
آری،
and armed.
آنها سازمان یافته بودند.
Indeed,
اما
they
از این
were
به بعد
organized, but
بسا
from now
بسا
on,
سازمان
they will
یافته‌تر
confront you
و
far
بسا
more organized
آماده‌تر
and far
به
better prepared.
مساف شما آمده و خواهند آمد. در روزهای قیام آبان
During the days
خامنه‌ای
of the November
اونقدر
uprising,
ترسیده بود که با کشتار دست
Ali
کم
Khamenei was so
1500
terrified
تن
that he sought to confront the immense storm by massacring at least 1,500 protesters.
اما اون پدیده خیره کننده که در
Yet,
بطن قیام
the most striking
ظاهر شد،
phenomenon that emerged from the heart of the uprising was the rise of hundreds of thousands of bold, courageous young fighters who took up the struggle to overthrow the religious tyranny.
ارتش بزرگ آزادی مردم ایران
This
است.
was a glimpse of the Iranian people's great army of freedom.
اون جوانهای شورشگر مناطقی از شهرهای
Those
شورشی
rebellious
مثل
youth
شیراز،
succeeded
بندر
in
ماهشهر،
liberating parts of restive
شهریار،
cities such as
آزاد
Shiraz, Bandar Mahshar, and Shahriyar, and they
مرکز رژیم رو
targeted around 1,900 of the
وجود
regime's
چنین قدرت رزمنده
centers.
در قلب جامعه
The presence of such a fighting force at the heart of Iranian society is the defining feature of Iran's ongoing uprisings, and it provides the essential answer to the fundamental question: how is regime change possible?
این نیرویی است که از هر قدرتی در جهان
This is the fighting force that regime fears
خامنه‌ای
more than any power in the world.
پایدار
Khamenei has responded with the gallows,
و پی در
issuing
پی
execution
برای
sentences,
زندانیان هوادار مجاهدین حکم‌های
one after
اعدام
another, for prisoners who support the MEK.
در مرداد گذشته دو مجاهد خلق
Just this past July,
مهدی حسنی رو
the regime executed 2 MEK members, Behruz Ehsani and Mehdi Hassani.
اتهام عضویت
At
در
this
مجاهدین
moment, 17 others face execution on the charge of belonging to the MEK.
عکس‌های اونها رو
I have their images here with me.
همچنین از میان اونها به ویژه میخوام از خانم
I would
زهرا
like to
تبری
point out
خواهر
specifically
عزیزم نام ببرم
among them Zahra Tabari, my dear sister. who has been sentenced to execution,
جواد وفایی ثانی قهرمان
and Javad Vafai Sani,
جوانی که
a boxing champion
بهش حکم اعدام دادند.
that they have sentenced to be executed.
شجاعت و فداکاری اونها
Their courage, their
رزمنده
sacrifice,
مجاهدان مکن
and the fighting spirit of MEK members condemned to death reflect the unshakable resolve of a rising generation that has entered the field to overthrow religious fascism. Indeed, the answer does not lie in spectacles, media theatrics, or propaganda noise. The answer lies in the self-sacrificing individuals like the PMY members at Ashraf 3, who have dedicated everything they have to the cause of the revolution. Women and men
زنان و مردانی که الهام بخش
Women and men
صدق و پاکی
who have
وفا به پیمان برای جوانان مشتاق آزادی هستند.
women and men who through their honesty, purity, and unwavering loyalty to their pledge serve as inspirations to young people yearning for freedom.
گشودن
Their 60 years of experience in politics, organization, and struggle is an invaluable asset in paving the way to liberty.
برای
The
تغییر
answer also lies in the resistance units who embody the Iranian people's resolve for change.
سرنوشت یک
Yes,
انقلاب را
it is such individuals, resolute human beings, unafraid to give their lives, who determine the destiny of a revolution.
آنها که به قول مسعود گام باقی مانده
They are those who, as Masood has said, traverse-
مانده تا قیام را شتابان و با چنگ و ناخن و
they are
دندان
those who, as Masood Rajavi has said, traverse the remaining steps to uprising swiftly, even if it takes fighting tooth and nail.
برنامه ما برای ایران
Our
فردا
program
نوشته
for the
در
Iran of
اینها
tomorrow
بلکه
is not merely words on a paper.
همین رزم و رنج
It is the direct expression of years of struggle and sacrifice.
آینده‌ای داشته باشند
For this reason, it guarantees that our people will have a future without torture, without executions, without the clerical regime's religious decree,
بدون تبعیض
and without
جنسی
religious,
و بدون
gender-based,
تبعیض
or
ملی.
ethnic discrimination.
جنگ با کشورهای همسایه
War
جای
with
خود را
neighboring
به
countries
صلح
will give
و
way to
همزیستی
peace
می‌دهد.
and
و به جای
coexistence.
برنامه شوم اتمی
And in place of the
برنامه
regime's
خواهیم داشت
destructive
برای
nuclear
توسعه
project,
اقتصادی و اجتماعی
we will pursue a program
دموکراتیک
for
ایران.
democratic, economic,
کشوری
and
می‌خواهیم
social development in
جمهوری
Iran.
دموکراتیک.
We seek a country governed by a democratic republic.
ما کشوری می‌خواهیم با یک جمهوری
We seek a
دموکراتیک
government,
و انتخابات آزاد.
a country governed by a democratic republic and free elections. A state founded on the separation of religion and state, equal participation of women in political leadership, and autonomy for Iran's nationalities.
و همچنان که بارها گفتم ما
As I have said many times, we are not fighting to seize power. Our goal is to return sovereignty to the people of Iran. In accordance with the ratification of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, after the overthrow of the regime, a provisional government will take office for no more than 6 months to organize elections for a constituent assembly, which will draft the constitution of the new republic. To realize this goal, I extend a hand to all my compatriots, and I call and I call upon all governments to recognize the struggle of the Iranian people and the fight of the rebellious youth against the Revolutionary Guards. May you be victorious. My salutations to all of you.
Now, it is my distinct honor to welcome a very special guest to the stage. For years, he has championed the cause of liberty in Iran, called out the regime's abuses, and demanded accountability on the world stage. Please join me in welcoming the 70th Secretary of State of the United States, the Honorable Mike Pompeo.
Thank you all for that incredibly gracious welcome. It is wonderful to be again amongst so many dear friends, so many fellow believers in the future of a free Iran. It is great to be with you. And what an inspiring speech by my friend, Madam Rajavi. It's a privilege to follow her. And more than follow her, I want to take up precisely where she left us all. This is about forward. We know the history. Today, my remarks want to spend a bit of time recounting where we find ourselves today and talk mostly about where we all pray we will find ourselves tomorrow, with a nation that has arisen from inside to oust a regime that is illegitimate, and to build a place where all people of all genders can flourish and succeed and have the freedom that each of them so richly deserves. And it is thanks to the bravery of Iran's organized political opposition that their opportunity that I just spoke of is real, that this positive change and liberation of the Iranian people can happen and will happen. Look, we all know a few basic facts, right? This regime is weak. You can see it. It is more internationally isolated than ever. Those of you who have friends or family who are there know that the situation on the ground for the Iranian people today is difficult. We also know that there is zero popular legitimacy of this regime, and that it now has resorted, as it has for the past years, but even more today, to using fear as its only tool to shape. We saw that in the brutal suppression in 2022. The economy in shambles. Mismanagement, poisonous corruption, a regime that would simply rather take wealth than build it, destroy the resources of a great country, and whose leaders have no desire for the future for the Iranian people. But you know, it's interesting to watch this regime fail. We've seen it fail now in Lebanon. Hezbollah, not gone, but reduced in its impotence, a shadow of what it once was. The Lebanese leadership needs to move forward and use this opportunity as a chance to deliver good outcomes for the people that are living there. Hamas, cornered, weaker, struggling, but anyone in this room that thinks they will give up without a fight, I think, is a fool. This is a resistance movement inside of that place, and it needs to be crushed. And it needs to be crushed by the people of Gaza. In the end, much like in Iran, the resistance needs to be defeated by the good people that live in those places who know that the path of terror and extremism, the path to dictatorships and monarchies inside of these places is a path which will never lead to freedom and prosperity. In Syria, a regime that has collapsed, an evil dictator like Assad no longer in control, but now the people of Syria are faced with a stark choice. Whether they want to build unity, prosperity, a connected nation of people of different descents, the Druze, the Kurds, the Alawites, right? Different backgrounds, Muslims that live in the region. Do they want to build a Syria based on a foundation of freedom and prosperity, equality for each individual? Or will they return to a model that has so poorly served them for so many years? And of course, an Iranian nuclear program that no longer threatens the world in the same way it did just several months back. That does matter. Too many Western nations cowered in the face of that nuclear capability, of that nuclear power. And while it is never fair to say that the Iranian regime's nuclear capabilities have been totally destroyed or defeated, it is absolutely fair to say today that its capabilities to regenerate, to deliver that threat, to have air defense systems that could protect their capabilities is massively diminished. And for that, we should thank both the Israeli government that did so much damage and the United States of America, President Trump, who in Operation Midnight Hammer did so much to create so much opportunity for the world to rally to support the Iranian opposition inside of that country. We should thank them for the good work that they each did. You know, I'll bet you all get asked the same question I get asked. Mike, you've been at this a long time. When is this rotten regime going to fall? And they're looking for me to give them a date. Oh, it'll be next Wednesday, about noon, or a month from now, or a year from now. These questions are impossible to answer. We know only of the certainty of its failure. It's great. I see some young people here today. There's a bunch of old folks like me here, too. You young people may not remember as much of what I've lived through. I served America in its United States Army. I patrolled the then East German border. The East German people terrorized by the Stasi inside of their own country. And a Soviet Union that looked corrupt, it looked dangerous, and it looked to be in power for some time. Nobody could answer the central question. We all know that the Soviet Union would fall, but Mike, you're a young lieutenant patrolling that border. When will it fall? The date was unpredictable, but it came with unbelievable speed. Out of nowhere, these rotten regimes fail. We only know that the requirement is internal resistance to force that moment to come more readily and sooner. And I'm confident that we are well on our path to that. Does anyone in this room remember who predicted the Syrian regime's moment of failure? No, we don't predict these moments. They happen. They happen through dedication and hard work. They are not accidents of history. They are the work like people like you and Madame Rajavi and NCRI who help and deliver the capabilities so that the resistance can grow and be prepared for the moment that that day comes. You know, this is important too. We should never forget that this will be a wonderful, great thing for the people of Iran. But it will be a great thing for the people of the United States of America as well. It will be great for people all across the world. A thriving, democratic, popular government in Iran, not a theocracy, not a monarchy, not an oppressive regime. This will be a great thing for the entire world. We are waiting for that day, and it will be a blessing to us all. Three more thoughts for you. Madam Rajavi spoke about appeasement as failure. We see that in Europe today. If you appease tyrants, they will grow in power and stature, and they will prolong the time until a regime falls. Pallets of cash delivered from the West only enable the brutalization of the opposition inside of these countries. It fuels terrorism, it funds global risk, and it gives the regime money to continue its effort to deliver on its objectives, not the objectives of the people of Iran. You know, on our streets here in the United States, I see too many people, many of them young, who have supported what Hamas has done. This is indecent. It is indecent in the same way that anybody who speaks about a regime in Iran as, well, it's the only solution, doesn't understand basic human dignity and the fundamental objectives that we must all share to embolden and empower and support the opposition inside of Iran so that its day will come quickly. The isolation of the regime was something I spent a great deal of my time in government service focused on. The more that we could starve the regime of its money was to the good. The more that we could starve it of any credibility was to its detriment. And the more that we could starve it of any moral authority was an absolute imperative. There are many tools still available to all of us. The snapback of sanctions against the buyers of Iranian oil would deny Iran the capability to do what we all know it is intent upon doing. It wants to rebuild Hamas. It wants to rebuild Hezbollah. It is still funding the militias in Iraq that had a real impact on an election that was held this past week. This empowers and builds friends for the Ayatollah and his henchmen, the IRGC. We must deny them wealth and resources. We know, too, that what was built in the first Trump administration, it became what was known as the Abraham Accords, now expanded by one country, begins to build a basic framework, a model that can deliver for not just Iran, but for the entire region. We must build out the friendships with Arab countries who, too, want to see the Iranian regime fail. The leaders in the region know that the great risk does not come from the United States. It does not come from Israel. It sits in Tehran. The leadership of Tehran still, to this day, hosts the al-Qaeda leadership in its city. We know that that empowers them. We all must work against their continued capacity to host terrorists and extremists and then to foist that terror upon Europe and the world. I call upon my European colleagues and friends, do not fall for this storyline that there is no alternative. Everyone in this room knows precisely that there is an alternative, a free and independent sovereign Iran delivered to it by its own people. The democratic alternative that Madam Rajavi and so many of you have been working to and demonstrate its capability now for 40-on years knows the history, but it too is totally prepared for the day that we have the opportunity to move forward. We know that the propaganda machine dismisses the 30,000 people who were massacred in 1988. That we know that they dismiss all the work that the resistance has done inside of Iran, preparing itself for that day. Look, the roadmap that has been laid out is clear. It is straightforward. It is one that, as an American who has studied American history, knows it is a fraught path. It is never an easy one. But the people who stand strong in the moment can deliver a free nation. It can deliver a republic. And sometimes that republic will last 250 years, and I pray another 250 years. I'm rooting for the same thing for the people of Iran. You know, I have observed the NCRI in my time in Congress, my time as CI director, my time as Secretary of State, and now my time as an American civilian. I've watched everything that this organization has done, and I've watched what it has not done. It didn't ask for American boots on the ground inside of Iran. It didn't ask for an external change of regime. It didn't ask the West to do anything more but support the Iranian opposition and put pressure on the regime so that the day that it reaches its ultimate demise comes more quickly and more certainly. That's all that's ever been asked. That's precisely how revolutions take place. That's precisely how governments are overthrown. It's precisely the reason that existing theocratic, oppressive, terrorist regimes will one day meet their ultimate end. So what are we going to do? How are we going to bring this forward? The focus of my remarks today, forward. How do we deliver this forward? And for those of you who have lost loved ones or family members to this brutal regime, we should never forget the history. And the importance of moving forward is predicated on our recollection, our honoring those people who have lost family or loved ones to the regime's brutality. You will always be in my prayers and that of my family, and you will always be in my thoughts as I think about the way to deliver the outcome that the people of Iran so richly deserve. Hang together. Stay together. Be together as a community. Come together on a Saturday afternoon when you could have been doing many things to remind ourselves of the task that we have before us and the good work that we can do to support the opposition inside of their country. Speak out consistently and from your heart and with a conviction in the knowledge that you are right and that your goal, your objective will one day be achieved. The just, God-given right of all human beings to live in a free and prosperous society will one day find its roots inside of Iran. I know that it will. It is our solemn duty to help deliver that. I pray that our leaders in the West, here in the United States and elsewhere, will take advantage of the extraordinary opportunity that presents itself today to support the Iranian people in their aspirations for freedom. And I have every confidence that before too long, I will get the chance to be with you, and we will get to hear from an Iranian leadership duly elected by the people of Iran. What a glorious day that will be. And when that day happens, Iran will take its rightful place among those nations that respect basic human dignity. And on that day, Iran will take its place with a set of leaders that respect the basic fundamental rights of every parent to raise their children in the way that they so choose, for every teacher to educate their children about the things that matter most, and for every community in Iran to set its own course. The aspirations run deep. The work that you have done to date is powerful. Thank you for that. May God bless you. May God bless Madam Rajavi and bless this great people of Iran. Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
thank you for your presence and your strong words supporting the Iranian people. As you said, the end of this regime is certain. It is time for the world to recognize the Iranian people's right to end the mullah's regime and the right of the resistance units to fight against the regime's oppressive forces, especially the IRGC. And as you said, Iran will be free and the change will come by the people of Iran. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Secretary Pompeo. It's always an honor to have you with us. We now continue with a voice known for his eloquence, conviction, and commitment to democratic principles. It is my honor to introduce the Right Honorable John Bercow, former Speaker of the House of Commons of the United Kingdom. Please welcome Mr. John Bercow.
Thank you for the unparalleled warmth and generosity of the welcome you've just extended to me, to which I don't know whether I'm equal, but I'll strive my level best. Let me say, Ambassador Sands, Congressman Kennedy, other distinguished dignitaries here present, and of course, paying obeisance and massive respect to Secretary of State Pompeo. It is the most enormous privilege to be invited to be amongst your number today and to be in the presence, perhaps not physical, but it felt almost literally physical, of greatness in the form of a political leader who is an example to women and all who aspire to political leadership in every part of the globe, and I refer, of course, to Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. Part of the joie de vivre, the raison d'être of continued life at my age is the occasional opportunity to experience something for which I can find no precedent. I have been actively involved in politics, my friends, and I think you are my friends, for 46 years. I've been very privileged to attend meetings, seminars, congresses, conferences and conventions in virtually every part of the world, and periodically been privileged to be invited to address them. I have to tell you that I have never attended, still less been asked to address, a convention that comes anywhere near to matching the electricity, energy, or all-engrossing enthusiasm on display in this convention hall today. And in addition to saluting each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart, I want to say this: I've been present for every single moment of this great convention. I don't say that because I'm proud of it. I've been fortunate, lucky, privileged to be, and I think two tributes are in order. First, to the NCRI for conceiving, organizing, and facilitating with almost military precision and clockwork efficiency the best convention I've ever attended. Secondly, my friends, is it not also appropriate to offer our salutations to the 5 panels whom we were fortunate to witness and from whom we learnt this morning. Each and every one sparklingly impressive, invigorating, and inspiring. Intellectuals, academics, entrepreneurs, each added something, but I hope people will forgive me if I say, in that sea of unrivaled brilliance, why there were 2 that will remain with me for the rest of my life. And those 2 panels, in no particular order, were the women's panel and the young people's panel. People who've suffered, people who've refused to accept defeat, people who have kept going, being positive, radiating enthusiasm, demonstrating commitment, doing the hard work, standing by others. And when we talk about standing by and remembering others, let's not forget those distinguished denizens of Ashrath 3 who have sacrificed so much for so long in support of so many. There are many others from whom you wish to hear and from whom you will hear. I would like to focus on 3 points. First, and it does bear repetition, the regime has authored a 4.5 decade in the making long essay in barbarity against its own people. This is a regime characterized by intolerance, by crudity, by viciousness, by bestiality, and above all, its egregious sins, by a complete incomprehension of the purpose in the minds of freedom lovers of government itself. They've not quite got it, have they? The Ayatollahs. The purpose of government, I'll say it slowly in the hope that it might one day register, the purpose of government is to serve, to facilitate, and to empower the people of your country. Khomeini and his motley band of execrable thugs think that the purpose of government is to attain power for self and then to repress, to dominate, to terrorize, to intimidate, and to subjugate the people. They just don't get it, never have got it, never will get it. That's why they can't be improved, they have to be removed. And my friends, as we heard with such a combination of intellect and uncanny eloquence from so many people, Iran has become a global embarrassment. It is a veritable basket case, not because of the inadequacies or shortcomings or lack of industry or talent of its people, but because of misgovernment, malfeasance, a government, frankly, of misanthropists, people who actually hate their fellow human beings. That's why you've got an economy destroyed, public services malfunctioning, no proper electricity or water supply, environmental degradation, mass unemployment with half the adult population not in sustainable work, huge sums of money being poured into the repressive state apparatus, the export of terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, if I want to put it in 3 words, what have we got in this appalling government in Iran? We've got a failed state. A failed state. And that's why we know, as Secretary Pompeo has said, and as I've heard Ambassador Sands, from whom you'll hear again, say on previous occasions, it is nonsense on stilts to think for a moment that there is no alternative. Of course there is an alternative. And the alternative isn't to appease, because these people don't respect weakness. They shudder only at a display of strength. So before I turn to the heroes in this debate and the sources of succor and encouragement and positivity as we move forward, allow me to focus on my second point, and that is what the alternative isn't. My friends, I don't want to be too unkind, but that gives me a little bit of scope. The alternative is not son of Shah. No way! This is a guy who's lived a life of luxury, toddled around the world with enormous resources at his disposal, having scuttled away in ignominy and disgrace from the ill deeds and the consequences thereof of his late father, and who now comes forward with a blueprint, how jolly decent of the chappie, for the future of Iran. An 18-month transition to a new government, but with the option of an 18-month extension on the 18 months. And this is a fellow who, in all solemnity, without even a titter or so much as a smile of embarrassment etched upon the contours of his visage, he proposes to have the lead role in the appointment of the head of the executive branch, the head of the judicial branch, and indeed the head of the legislative branch. You know, it's sounding awfully like an old monarchy. I used to think this chap thought he was the prince over the water. Perhaps he reckons he's the king over the water. I know not. You know, the sheer audacity, the temerity, the cheek, if I may use, as my late father would have done, an old Yiddish expression, the chutzpah of the man, the insolence of it, the brazenness of the conduct, and the complete absence of any capacity for self-reflection, self-awareness, consciousness of the absurdity of putting himself forward as an alternative for the country. I say to Mr. Pahlavi, sir, I don't know you personally. I've borne up stoically and with fortitude over the last 62 years without having made your acquaintance, and I dare say I shall continue to put one foot in front of the other in my remaining days on this planet. But I hope I can say on behalf of all of you in this hall, Mr. Pahlavi, you have an undistinguished past behind you. You have an undistinguished future in front of you. Don't call us, and you can be absolutely guaranteed and sure in the knowledge that we and the people of Iran will not call you. So, my friends, I come to the third and final point you'll be relieved to know. What is the alternative? And in particular, what's the basis? What's the basis? What's the basis in the course of a political debate for determining what, as an academic might say, is the determinative yardstick of who should be regarded as the authentic and legitimate alternative? My friends, may I politely suggest to you that the most obvious and compelling source of legitimacy is being on the ground, not having run away, organizing resistance, sticking at it, empowering others, and conducting a life that is selfless, that is based upon service, and which accepts the inevitability periodically of sacrifice. That's what the MEK has been doing for almost 4.5 decades. That's why 100,000 of those wonderful human beings have been slaughtered by the regime, because they stand up to it. That's why 17 are on death row as we speak. That's why last year they engaged in 39,000 acts of publicity against the depredations of this most tyrannical regime, which, as has been articulated a number of times, per capita has the worst record for the execution of its citizens of any regime in any other part of the world. It is top of the league table of murderous infamy. That's the reality of this regime, and it's the NCRI and the MEK resistance units that have stood up to the regime. And not only have they shown bravery and courage and the indomitable power of the human spirit, but they have fought and are fighting and will fight for recognizably pluralist values. Anyone objecting to a horrible regime can say, I'm a freedom fighter. I want something different. I want something better. You have to look at the specifics, examine the detail, read and interpret the words, the commitments. Freedom of the press, the rule of law, gender equality, an independent judiciary, a separation between church and state, environmental husbandry, and very importantly, the right of the people to determine their own future. And that's what causes me to say that the power of self-government, the right to hire and fire our rulers, the capacity freely to chart our own destiny as individuals and as nations are inalienable features of the human condition. And the reason why the regime is doomed to fail, doomed, I repeat, utterly doomed, is that in the end, you cannot extinguish the flame of freedom. The reality of the matter is that love trumps hate. Hope trumps fear. Positivity trumps negativity. It will happen, as Secretary Pompeo, a man of vast experience and wisdom in these matters, knows, and he said, we don't know exactly when. What we do know is that change, and change for the better, change to democracy, change to pluralism, change to parliamentarism, is as inevitable as the passage of the seasons, or you and I going to bed tonight and getting up in the morning and having breakfast. That's how inevitable it is. And perhaps I can conclude by simply saying this to you. I quoted this at lunch with Ambassador Sands, hoping that I wouldn't be rebuked. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I'm certain it will. In adversity, in the Second World War, Churchill's family motto was KBO, keep buggering on at all times. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep working, keep campaigning. And you have to remember, I think Carla and I and others know this, and Patrick Kennedy knows this, anybody engaged in the practice of politics knows this. In politics and campaigning, and our young friends who perform so brilliantly will know this, quantity, persistence, and above all, repetition are even more important than the quality of your arguments. Now, of course, the arguments must pass muster. They have to withstand scrutiny. They have to be up to it. They've got to be honest, truthful, credible, deliverable, supportable. But it's a huge mistake to think you can say it once, get it accepted, have it done. It doesn't work like that. You have to keep going on and on and on. And we who support you, and the people of Iran, I know, the people of Ashbath 3, all of you, will go on doing so until the people of Iran enjoy the freedom, the democracy, the rule of law, the independent judiciary, the gender equality, and the separation of state and religion that we have so long enjoyed and they have too long been denied. In short, my friends, we will win, and nothing on earth can stop us winning. Thank you.
For your strong vote, especially your support of Ashraf Tree residents. As always, you focused on the main issues. Iran will be free, and there is a real, well-organized alternative to the current religious dictatorship. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Berko. We are incredibly grateful for your presence, friendship, and support. Ladies and gentlemen, our next segment is a powerful duo entitled Science, Technology, and the Future of Iran. We are honored to welcome Professor Morteza Gharib, the Hans W. Liepman Professor of Aeronautics and Mechanical Engineering at Caltech. He directs both the Graduate Aerospace Laboratories and the Center for Autonomous Systems and Technologies. Joining him in conversation is Dr. Mohammad Tassouji, Professor at California State University, San Marcos, and CEO of Cienza Energy. Please welcome Professor Morteza Gharib and Dr. Mohammad Tassouji.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Mohammad Hussein Tassouji, and it's my great privilege and honor to introduce you to Dr. Morteza Gharib. Dr. Morteza Gharib is one of the most accomplished academics and inventors that I've ever come across to know. Professor Gharib, the Hans W. Liepman Professor of Aeronautics and Mechanical Engineering at Caltech, California Institute of Technology, and he's currently the chair of the Center for Autonomous Systems and Technologies. He was the vice provost for 7 years at California Institute of Technology. Dr. Gharib is a member of American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a member of National Academy of Engineering, a charter fellow of National Academy of Inventors, and fellow of many other societies, along with many other major accomplishments. Dr. Gharib has a very accomplished record. He has over 170 patents to his name. Among his patents are iStent, a microshunt that for the treatment of glaucoma, and so far this invention has saved at least 2 million eyesights globally. He is also inventor of a 3D dental scanner that for implants and for crowns that shortens the turnaround from 2 weeks to about half an hour. He's also inventor of a VVO heart failure detection device through Ventric Health. This passed the FDA approval last year and is now a commercial system. This predicts the heart failure, potential heart failures from a few hours to a few months in advance. His first implant of synthetic polymeric heart valve by Foldax Incorporation, which addressing a major need to replace animal tissue based on heart valves in the valve transplant. He's also the inventor of the first pure silicon anode for rechargeable batteries. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Morteza Gharib to the stage. So, Dr. Gharib, thank you very much for accepting the invitation and being present here. I've always wanted to know, having 170 patents, which one is your most favorite one?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and also for the gracious and kind introduction. That's a tough question. It's like among your children, pick up one. Which one you love more? But I have been always cognizant of issues that medicine and also in technology, people challenge. But in this case, medicine has been my favorite patents that I have. And among them, as you mentioned, invention for treatment of glaucoma without using any actually drops. You know, it's a very difficult disease to treat, and our invention allowed that by just an operation procedure, half an hour during a cataract surgery, to solve the problem forever. And right now, 2 million people are in the world having it, and we have very good results. And the other one is my philosophy of making sure that the most advanced medical technologies and treatments are available to the masses. And as you know, at least in this country, the price and cost of treatment is very high. If you wanted to have a heart valve, for example, God forbidden, it costs between $12,000 to $30,000. So through our inventions with my team, we came up with a heart valve that instead of using animal tissues, we are using polymers. And because we cut the price from $12,000 down to $600. And right now it's the final approval by FDA, but some other countries already approved it, like in India, is very popular because they have fantastic surgeons, but they cannot afford, expensive, heart valves coming from U.S. So those are my favorite. The other 160 should wait.
So Dr. Arif, I know you've been involved in many research and scientific endeavors. You've been, with JPL, with NASA, and many other things, and as well as AI. I want to see, in your opinion, how do you see the future of science, technology, engineering, especially with this artificial intelligence? How do you see the whole engineering and technology evolving with the new technology?
Well, of course, every expert has different opinion. Mine is based on, especially as it goes to AI, is that AI is a tool, and depends on how we use it. So future of technology, especially engineering and medicine especially, is going to depend on how we use AI in order to expedite from diagnostics to treatment to using it for basically advance our, the progress in different areas. I think the key point that will help the engineering and science is that we do not use AI as a decision maker, but as a tool, and we be the judge of what is the best way of going to approach these problems. Should remember that AI lives on information that we provided in the past. So AI is not going to create a new Picasso or new Einstein. But once we introduce it to Einstein and Picasso's, it can try to do better or more of Picasso's. So at the end of the day, human beings are the key to development of science and technology in the future. But better tools, and that tool is AI.
So that echoes what Professor Tao, who is a famous mathematician at UCLA, is probably with IQ of 250. And he has the same view. He says that AI is a good co-pilot rather than the pilot itself. So you concur with that idea. Dr. Gharib, you were educated, got your undergraduate at University of Tehran, which is one of the best probably university in Iran, along with University of Sharif. And then, like me, you migrated to the United States. And you didn't go back. First of all, I would like to know what made you decide to come to the United States? Why did you leave the country? And then why you stayed here? Why you didn't go back?
Well, it's a painful memory, but I'm more than glad to share with you. I think innovation and creativity cannot flourish in a society or a community that does not allow free thinking. And especially creativity can only flourish in a society or community that allows younger generation to question, to explore, and to come up with some answers for the societal issues that they're dealing with. And despite all the artificial so-called progress that, during the Shah's regime was in Iran, one thing was missing, and that was allowing for a democratic society that allows for the younger generation and all the generations to think freely and ask for accountability. And for that reason, many of us, especially university students, that like me, did not see any future for if they wanted to go to an environment that allows them to get better and to be more effective in terms of contributing back to the society. And all of it went back to the fact that it was not a system that democratic and allowed for academic freedom or to allow us to pursue our dreams in how to help our communities. So for having a breath of oxygen of freedom, I decided to leave the country. On the other hand, many of us, much better than me, decided to stay and continue to fight for bringing democracy to Iran. And among them, you can, even now, some of the leadership of MEK at that time were classmates and NCR. So that was a choice for me to make at that time.
So how do you see the engineering talent of Iranian society, Iranian people? For those of you, I was doing a project and based on the 2020 census in the United States of 1.5 million Iranians that live here officially, 500,000, 500,000 people have degrees of master's or PhD or more professional degrees. So definitely there's a great pool here. But in general, what is your feeling about it?
Just to add to your statistics, there are more Iranian original physicians in Canada than in Iran. I mean, this is really a shameful fact. But getting back to your question, every Iranian family would love their kids to go to engineering, to science, to medicine, or excel in business. We always push our kids to be better and do better. And with all the talents that we have in Iran and all this, I would say high IQ, actually Iran ranked among the top 3 countries in the world with the highest IQs. We are basically untapped with resources. Of course, you need to have material, and we have the material too. We are sitting on largest, natural resources in the world. You can mention it from minerals to gas and oil. And just think of if you could combine them in a society that people naturally try to solve problems, try to develop technologies that can help themselves and other people. That would be almost unimaginable. We have all the parameters that is required for being successful as an advanced country in this world.
Yeah. Well, one other question that I have, and that's maybe more for the future, is how can we attract this talent back to Iran? Just FYI, I was doing a research for NCRI some 20 years ago, and I was looking at the list of professors at the universities in the United States of America. I didn't have a chance to look at Europe and otherwise. There was not one single university that did not have an Iranian professor teaching there. Not a single one. So, based on your opinion, what should we do to pull back, to attract back this immense amount of talent that we have abroad to Iran?
Well, before answering that question, going back to your comment, it shows very clearly that if we bring the same people, same students, same talents to a society that allows them to grow, what they can achieve.
Of course.
I was thinking, I was looking at some of the statistics. Right now, 10% of the chairs of electrical engineering in this country are from Iranian origin. You can imagine that, there must be something good about them. But how come they couldn't do it back in Iran? The answer is obvious. The answer is that you need to create an environment that allows free thinking. Do not punish people for questioning. And that means that you need to have a democratic environment, a democratic government that supports its people for being innovative, creative, and help them. I think once you have that environment, people will do the job. We don't need to tell them what to do exactly. They can solve all the problems for us. For bringing that back to Iran is a necessary condition to have a democratic, secular, and peaceful Iran, republic.
Of course. Have you had any chance to discuss your views on whatnot with the leadership of the opposition in Iran?
Yeah, I was actually lucky enough in many occasions to have this discussion, and without any exaggeration, the most impressive part of my meeting was with Madame Rajavi, and she is an amazing scientist. I'm telling her in front of her, the type of questions that she asked me kind of the type of question and depth of questions. I think not the type of question, depth of questions from AI to quantum physics to astrophysics, medicine. I said, this lady must have been studying a lot. How many hours she has per day that can actually study and ask such deep questions. Thank you very much, anyway. You challenged me to be a better scientist. So we had good discussions, and I think at the end of the day, it's obvious that we need to have the opportunities and create the opportunities for our younger generations. And as long as we have leaderships that they are for science and for engineering, I have no doubts that once we have that democratic Iran, we are going to be in good business.
Speaking of Madame Rajavi and her thirst for science and technology, we've had occasions as a member of NCRI that I had the privilege and honor of sitting with Madame Rajavi, and she always asked questions. But one of the most important things to me is that Madame Rajavi is asking scientific questions, not only for the sake of scientific questions, but she is seeing how can I implement this in the organization to make it even more efficient, like AI and whatnot. And for me, that's truly, truly remarkable. The focus that Madam President-elect has on the issue of bringing democracy to Iran, regime change in Iran, but also making efficient the organization that she's leading towards Iran. My last question to you is, although I have so many other questions that I wish I could have asked, but time is short. The question to you is, what kind of suggestion would you have for the future of Iran and the resistance?
Of course, I'm a scientist, so I only trust myself when I make scientific suggestions. But I don't think that we need to make any suggestions. We have the 10-point platform. Just follow that. I mean, it creates all the environments that you need to have, all the requirements that you need to have to fulfill everything that I mentioned. I mean, that 10 points, I studied very carefully. It's a nice, rejuvenated U.S. the original Constitution. It's just amazing that also designed for Iranians, for Iranian societies. So my only suggestion, if I may, is that let's follow that 10 points, those 10 points. I mean, we are going to be in good shape.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Gharib, thank you very much for the privilege. It's quite an honor, and really, as an Iranian professor and engineer, scientist, it's an honor to have someone like you, support the resistance and also help the humanity. So thank you very much for saying that.
با تشکر تشکر از دکتر تاسوجی و دکتر قریب.
Thank you, Dr.
بسیار بسیار
Kasuji.
سپاسگزارم. شما شکست نفسی
And thank you,
کردید.
Professor Gharib.
من هر بار که از شما سوال میکنم برای اضافه شدن
Of course, you were very humble. The reality is that every time I ask you questions, it's to be able to raise my awareness and to be able to learn from you. So that's the first point. But you've provided very, very informative information today here. And the important question that Mr. Tasuji asked you, I just wanted to add a few sentences and my own feelings towards the situation in Iran right now and my hopes for the future of Iran. Specifically for Iran's scientific community and the women of Iran, the women that we see today in this gathering, and also the professors and the experts of Iran that we have here with us today and represent what we have in Iran. Those experts who had to flee Iran and have made great sacrifices along the way, and those who are still inside of Iran and living under the current regime with all the pressures. The reality is that dictatorships and suppression, be it under the Shah with the Savak or under the regime, current regime, they are the true enemies of innovation and change in science. But in reality, what we see in the last 4 decades is that the resistance has always turned to science to be able to open the path and to be able to move forward. So scientists and experts have a great role in the resistance, in going forward, and to be able to create the true free Iran that we need. So what is very much needed and what is always said is expertise that is independent is worth in gold. So there are millions of Iranians with expertise that are very valuable for the freedom of Iran. Both inside of Iran, we have millions of those who are really their knowledge and their expertise can really serve our people. So thank you very much for your talks today. And I would like to once again thank Professor Gharib and Dr. Tasuji. Thank you very much.
تکرار سوگ سیاوش شده ای زاده رنج این آب خاک چون یل بکوبان سر اژدها می توانیم مثل فریاد از گلوله تاترانه رد شویم می توانیم چون ستاره مقصد سپیده را بلد شویم الصخور إذا حاولوا عصرها وقاس أنا كالنسور إذا حاولوا قهرها وصلب أنا كالجسور إذا أثقلوا ظهرها وحين أثور تعيد البراكين لي سرها.
Our voices will resound, and for liberty's cause forever we'll stand our ground. We stand in the face of the dark night, through the storm we hold on to our light. We open our eyes when the march on to the land where the dreams of freedom's born. Hold me, hold me up,
King, la route a été longue, le chemin tortueux. D'autres sont morts pour avoir résisté à l'oppresseur. Le soleil de justice se lève pour un avenir plus radieux. La guérison de mon pays me donne sourire aux lèvres. Gardons la foi pour que cet espoir puisse s'accomplir. Tout un peuple restauré qui rebâtit sur d'anciennes ruines. Un nouveau jour, une nouvelle ère, une nouvelle gloire. Le Créateur nous a pas oubliés, il réécrit notre histoire. Car il a entendu les cris, les pleurs, les larmes. Ressenti la douleur de chaque enfant, de chaque homme et chaque femme. Chacun de ces noms est gravé, hommage à nos martyrs. 120 ans plus tard, le monde va enfin voir un Iran libre. Ta lumière arrive, le combat sera remporté. Et tu seras pour le monde entier un sujet de joie.
It is my honor to now welcome Ambassador Carla Sands, former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark and a leading advocate for human rights and transatlantic cooperation. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause for Ambassador Carla Sands.
Madam President-elect Maryam Rajavi, your leadership continues to guide this movement. I am honored to speak here today with you. Thank you so much, and God bless you. distinguished guests, activists, members of the Iranian American community, and all those joining us today online. It's a privilege to be with you at this truly historic gathering. And this isn't just a convention. This is the demonstration of a political reality that the Iranian people not only reject dictatorship, but already have a democratic alternative capable of replacing it. I've stood with this movement before in the front of the United Nations in New York and earlier this year in Rome, where I spoke on a panel at the International Free Iran Summit 2025, a summit where Mrs. Maryam Rajavi delivered the keynote address. And I say this with full confidence. The National Council of Resistance of Iran is not a theory. It is not an opposition on paper. It is a government in waiting, backed by a movement that has survived prison, executions, terrorism, and exile, and yet stands stronger than ever. We just heard the battle cry for this movement in the beautiful music just played. And we're no longer in the phase of the regime asking if this regime will change. No, the regime is losing control. We are now in the phase of highlighting the force for change and determining who is prepared to lead the nation when it does. Inside Iran, the regime is hanging young protesters. It's executing political prisoners and launching new waves of repression, not from strength, but from fear. And now, for the first time in years, the international pressure is returning as well. The snapback mechanism has been activated, restoring UN sanctions that the regime thought it had escaped. Tehran is once again cornered, economically, politically, and diplomatically. The walls are closing in, not because of foreign armies, but because of the courage of the Iranian people and the persistence of the resistance that never surrendered. The Iranian regime spends tremendous time and energy demonizing one force above all others, the NCRI and the MEK. It doesn't fear exiled monarchs. It doesn't fear lobbyists. It does not fear those waiting for change to happen. It fears the MEK because this movement is organized. It has leadership. It has structure. It has a clear political program. And it has resistance units within Iran who are focused on confronting the Revolutionary Guards and repressive forces. And they're already preparing for a transition of power. A regime does not wage a disinformation campaign against an idea. And it does not fear what it thinks is, it only fears what it sees as an existential threat. And the threat is this movement, the movement gathered right here in this room. It's all of you. And let me speak plainly about what the world must stop pretending. There's no path forward for Iran through some form of dictatorship. Neither is maintaining part of the current theocracy or the restoration of the monarchy. The Iranian people rejected dictatorship 46 years ago under the Shah, and they're not going back. That chapter of history is closed. Iran will not trade a turban for a crown. The real alternative doesn't come from nostalgia, foreign influence, or from inherited titles. A real alternative comes from sacrifice, from struggle, and from the legitimacy earned in the streets, in the prisons, and in the hearts of the people. And that alternative is the National Council of Resistance of Iran. I've met Mrs. Miriam Rajavi multiple times. I've asked her questions, I've listened to her vision, and I've seen her leadership. And although I haven't yet visited Ashraf 3, personally, I've studied what's been built there, and I know what it represents. A living example of what the Iranian resistance is capable of when it is free from the regime's violence. Like Ashraf 3, the future of Iran is pluralistic, it's modern, and it's rooted in universal values. One of the defining features of this movement, and one that terrifies the mullahs, is the central role of women. Not as symbols, not as supporters, but as leaders. The only revolution in the Middle East led by women is the Iranian resistance. In a regime built on gender oppression, the alternative is led by women and powered by thousands of women who command resistance units, political offices, and international campaigns. History will record this fact. When Iran rises, it will rise under the leadership of its daughters. Look around this room. This isn't theory. This is not exiled nostalgia. This is political capacity. This movement has everything it needs: the brightest people, utmost commitment, the unmatched track record, and the visionary and viable leadership. More than 1,000 people, experts, scholars, organizers, doctors, former political prisoners, activists, and the young generation are united here behind this message. NCRI and Iran has an alternative that has both the capacity and the intent to bring change in Iran. NCRI has leadership. Iran now has leadership. NCRI has a plan. Iran has that plan. The 10-point plan for a democratic, secular, non-nuclear republic. NCRI, Iran, they have a plan for transition after the fall of the mullahs, leading to a representative government. And that is why today matters. Because you are not asking the world to invent a solution, you are showing that the solution already exists. To all of you, you are showing that Iran does not need foreign boots on the ground or expropriation of money. You are the plan. And it's long past time for democratic governments to recognize the right of the Iranian people to overthrow this regime, hold Tehran accountable for the crimes against humanity, to stop legitimizing the regime through giving them concessions, and acknowledge that the NCRI is the legitimate representative of the Iranian people's struggle for freedom. Appeasement has failed. Reform is impossible. The only path to stability in Iran and in the region is the victory of the Iranian people and their organized resistance in ending the rule of theocracy in Iran. So let us say clearly and confidently, no to dictatorship, no turban, no crown. Yes to a democratic republic. Yes to the leadership of women in future Iran. Yes to the resistance units within Iran who are risking everything. Yes to the people of Iran who are closer to victory than ever before. And to those fighting in the prisons in Iran, in the streets, and in the resistance centers across the world, I say, we see you, we honor you, and we stand with you. Thank you. Until Iran is free.
Dear Ambassador Sands, thank you for your warm welcome. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you, Madam.
You are right. As you said, we are now in the phase of highlighting the force for change in Iran. I look forward to see you again. Thank you for your strong words about Ashraf Tlaib, about resistance units, about people of Iran. Thank you for all that you have said today.
Thank you, Ambassador Sands. As always, we are inspired by the strength and sincerity of your words. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patrick J. Kennedy, former U.S. Congressman and a steadfast ally of the Iranian people's fight for freedom. Mr. Patrick Kennedy.
Thank you so much for that great, warm welcome. It's great to be with you. It's especially great to see so many distinguished American leaders. Secretary Pompeo, what a tremendous job he did in putting an end to appeasement when he was Secretary of State. And to have Speaker Burkow, I am so glad I'm not up immediately following the Speaker. Wasn't he terrific? It's a terrific job. And the Ambassador, once again, proved the point that in a pluralist society, we can finally see women reflected in the great government and representation of the people of Iran. And I just want to say to Professor Karibe, you have such humility, and it is truly inspirational to hear of your accomplishments and also know that you represent so many who were never able to realize the ambitions you had in Iran because of the mullahs. And think about where Iran would be today if people like you had been able to pursue your dreams and ambitions. Imagine a different Iran we would have today. But the good news is, you and your compatriots have never forgotten the fight. And you are ready to return to Iran and help Iran reestablish its leadership in the world. You know, I see Madam Rajavi, who I'm so grateful to know, and to know of her particular inspiration and that of NCRI and MEK. As has been said already, a movement cannot function if it doesn't have the process and the ability to manifest the changes it seeks. And by having the Young Women's Panel, and by having the Young Persons Panel, and by having the diaspora in technology and science, and by having the great diplomats, you are showing that there is a process here. There is a process whereby Iran can make the transition because it has the back room, as we say in politics. There are smart people in the back room. I've always relied on those people to help me in my life. And I can tell you, at every one of the events that I've ever been to at MEK and CRI, I see brilliance, people capable, people who are motivated, and thanks to your sacrifice, you're going to be the ones who write a new chapter in Iran's history when Iran becomes free. So, since I first spoke to you, I now have to use glasses. That's how long I have been in this battle with you. I want to make the points that have been made before. So you know there's the saying, everything has been said, but not everybody has said it. But it's important for the broader public to hear from American political leaders once again what this is all about. And so that is why I want to repeat the points that have been made, that this is no ordinary conference. This is a moment of history, and congratulations to you for making this conference happen now, when we need to focus the United States administration and the United States Congress on what is happening in Iran today, so that they do not lose focus on the opportunity that is before us to seek change in Iran. Your message is loud and clear, and I've had the privilege of seeing that message epitomized, because I've been to Ashraf 3 and seen the model of what Iran can look like when people of industry and intellect and perseverance come together and build a community. If people wonder, can anyone organize? Can anyone put it together? This is a big job to transition from a history of dictatorship and theocracy. That's not a small job. But you look at what the people of Ashraf 3 have done, and they are an oasis. They have been fighting the fight in spite of the terror that they faced both in Iran and in Iraq. Let us not forget how they were repeatedly bombarded and killed and attacked. And you know what? They still played their music. They still recited poetry. They still celebrated one another. That is the kind of model that is in store for Iran when it finally takes back its freedom for its own people. And you know what else is the model for the future? It's the young people you've heard spoken of repeatedly at this conference. Because a movement cannot continue if it doesn't have people ready to take up the banner, to take up the model. And I can tell you a little bit about that in my family, because I had some really great role models. And so it's not an accident of fate that I am standing before you here, because it was my uncle, as President of the United States, who stood up in the Cold War to the Soviet Union when they were encroaching on East Germany and East Berlin. And you all know that famous speech, because when he delivered that speech, he wanted this to be seen not as an East Berlin fight. He wanted this seen as a fight for all humanity and all freedom. And that is why I'm with you today, because this is not an Iranian fight, even though it's the people of Iran who are waging it. This is a universal fight. And I would hope, if I were in Ireland, no offense, Speaker, and I had oppressors, and I was living in the kind of conditions that the people of Iran are living in today, that I would have more people than just my fellow Iranians speaking up for me, because I would want everyone to know that it's only by accident of birth that I am in Iran, because I am a child of God, and I could have been born anywhere in the world. And there, but for the grace of God, I am not seeing my 5 children today born into a country with the oppression of these mullahs. I thank God that as a father and a loving husband, I do not have to witness the degradation, the terror that your family members have to witness on a daily basis as they try to raise their children in a country that is being dominated and terrorized by the mullahs. I am so grateful that I am not living in a country that will persecute and dehumanize my wife and my 3 daughters simply because they're women. I say to myself, I have an obligation to stand up for them, because there, but for the grace of God, goes every single person in this world who's living under oppression and resistance. They need to know that they are not alone, because they could be any one of the rest of us. And you obviously have had families that have shared today about the brutality of this regime. And we are reminded all the time that it is the #1 country in the world for the imposition of the death penalty on their own people. #1 leader in killing their own people. What kind of leadership takes pride in the fact that they are known around the world to be the leading country in killing not only their own people, but killing the dreams and the hopes of their own people. And you think to yourself, in the modern way, when people think about Iran, they think, oh, there's a lot of oil there. But you listen to Professor Karib, and you look at the symphony orchestras, and you say to yourself, the biggest natural resource of Iran are its people. And the exciting thing, even in the midst of darkness and incredible oppression, when it would be easy for anyone to say, look at the 1988 massacre of over 30,000 martyrs. Look at the massacres ever since. Look at the number of people who are being arrested every day in Iran, who are being tortured and murdered and killed by their government. It would be easy if you were a young person to say, not for me. I've seen what this regime can do to people, and I am too afraid. But all of us have seen the courage and the strength of the young people across Iran as they stood up against that type of oppression. The courage means that all of you who have fought this battle for all of your lives can rest assured that no matter what, your struggle will carry on in the great determination and courage of all those young people who are standing up in the resistance movement all across the country of Iran today. Now, we have all been treated to a terrific sense of humor from Speaker Berkow about the Shah's son, because I don't need to add to that. It was brilliant. And it just shows the comedy that anyone could take this person seriously when they miss the whole point. The whole point is to free the country. What about that don't you get? It's not about you. It's about the people that you say you care about. And if you did care about them, the last thing you would choose to do is resurrect an old dictatorship when the argument for the future is a democracy. And that is why we need to follow the democratic example manifest in the 10-point plan of the NCRI and Madam Rajavi. Now, as I mentioned, in my family, I grew up thinking to myself, what is there left for me to do? I had these incredible people in my father's generation. One of them, my Aunt Eunice Shriver, started Special Olympics, which is now in over 190 countries around the world, uniting people and families who were previously shunned because their loved one had an intellectual and developmental disability. I grew up watching my Uncle Bobby with Martin Luther King. I grew up watching my father fight apartheid in South Africa, which no one ever thought. No one, to Secretary Pompeo's point, no one ever thought they'd see the end of that. And do you know what was so remarkable about that moment? is that they had to go pick up the future president of the country from the jail. They had a motorcade, a presidential motorcade. And you know what they did? They drove it all out to the place where all the political prisoners were incarcerated. And they had to pick up Nelson Mandela and take him out of jail. And guess where? They drove him directly into the president's office. And he took over. So, I just hope you know, as has been said before, these moments are going to happen. And I know you've been awfully patient and you've been waiting for too long. But don't give up, because the moment is coming, and it's coming soon. And all I have to say to you is I am so grateful, as the speaker said, for the opportunity to be on this road with you. My children literally have grown up watching MEK rallies. And I can't wait to take them to Iran and get the tour guides. Have Madam Rajavi even tell me who the best tour guide is for me to choose. And then I will take my kids all around and hear all about the Persian people and the birth of civilization and the greatness of a culture and the greatness of a people. And I will be able to say, I was part of this fight to make sure that the ultimate dream that was embodied through millennia of a free and prosperous Iran ultimately was manifest. And I will be able to say that I was part of these great number of people who did the right thing. And you know what? It's not going to be one person who does this. It's all of us together. And in the words of my uncle, speaking about South Africa, he said, each of us, each one of us, he didn't say all of us, each one of us can work to change just a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of our generation. Each time, he said, a person stands up or acts to improve the lot of others, like those brave Ashrafis, like those brave young resistance fighters, like Madam Rajavi. Each time someone stands up, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. And all those ripples coming together can create a current that can knock down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. So this is it. We don't have to do it all on our own. We've got everybody in this room, everybody in that room, and people all over the world who are joining in, because together we can finally achieve this goal of a free Iran. Thank you so much.
Kennedy, thank you for your solidarity to the people of Iran and especially with the MEK members in Ashraf Tree. We appreciate your commitment to a free Iran because, as you said, it is a universal struggle. And I must say that you are the pioneer to support the right of the people in Ashraf 1, in Liberty, and now in Ashraf 3. It's very valuable, and I'm sure that as soon as possible, Iran will be free, and you can see the Iran without Mullah.
Incredibly invigorating, as always. We are so thankful for your presence, Congressman Kennedy. Our next segment is titled A Scholar's Vision for Tomorrow, Shaping Iran's Future, the People's Choice for Democracy. We are honored to welcome Professor Hossein Sadegpour, a leading theoretical physicist and director of the Institute for Theoretical Atomic, Molecular, and Optical Physics at the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard and Smithsonian. Please join me in welcoming Professor Hossein Sadegpour.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Good. Mark Twain, the great American writer, once said, "There are many dates in a human's life which are important. The day they are born, the day their children are born, the day they get married, the day their children get married, the day they graduate from college, the day their children graduate from college. But there are only two dates which are important in a human life. The day they are born and the day they found out why they are born." This is the struggle to free Iran. To free Iran from the yokes of but it's not on the screen. Oh, but what is this? This is what happens when you use your Microsoft garbage. To free Iran from the yokes of the Shahs and the Sheikhs has been an epic struggle against the icons of authoritarianism and brutality. It has been a struggle to build institutions of democracy and the establishment of a plural and constitutional order. You may have heard it has been a century-long struggle, and that this narrative, which I'm going to describe today, will document that has been a story of bravery, unrelenting spirit of free will, and also diametrically opposed, a cautionary tale of opportunism and betrayal. At the end, what will unlock the riddle of Iran are lessons which are learned, and are learned by whom? The story begins here with the Sattar Khan and Babur Khan, who were technically the constitutional framers of the Constitution of Iran in 1905. It was the first Enlightenment revolution in the Islamic world, the very first one. It led to the creation of the first popularly elected parliament, Majlis, in the Middle East, only to see an opportunist, an Ahund, with aid from Russian troops, storm the Majlis, kill the movement, and butchery and enslavement followed. Many of you in the audience, especially the older kind, will know who Nuri was. It took another 2 generations. There was another first. Mohammad Mossadegh became the first democratically elected prime minister in the Muslim Middle East. He passed laws. He wanted to establish, of course, a government for the people and control its national resources for the people. The laws were going to make the world's first oil company, international oil company, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which is now called, how many of you know this? BP, yes. British Petroleum, to be owned by the people and for the people. While it is now documented history that CIA, with Operation Ajax in 1953, acted to remove Mossadegh from power, it was operationally only possible by betrayal of yet another Ahund, a Mullah, Abul Qasim Kashani, and with the aid of and his shock troops, the so-called Fedaiyan Islam, and of course by paid mobsters and mercenaries, such as Sha'ban Bimokh, which ended in the 28th Mordad. Mordad is the Iranian month coup d'etat. Again, yet another tale of opportunism and betrayal. For those who are maybe interested in this internet dump of the CIA memo, it reads like this: target Prime Minister Mossadegh and his government. Objectives: through legal or quasi-legal methods to effect the fall of the Mossadegh government and to replace it with a pro-Western government under the Shah's leadership. The CIA plan of action was implemented in 4 phases. This is how history evolves. Ajax became the first successful operation by CIA. It led to the downfall of Mossadegh, his arrest, and who eventually was brought to court in November 1953, and the Shah was brought back to power, and the CIA and MI6 had their man. And Iran officially became a client state. Absolute rule pursued. It began immediately in August of 1953 and went on for a couple of decades. Those who paid were the Iranians. Among them were the entire Central Committee members of the Mujahideen Khalq Organization of Iran, who were killed in 1972. The man with the star, you can see, is Asghar Badizadegan, who was at the time on the faculty of chemistry at Technical University of Tehran. And here, as has been also alluded by several speakers before me, for those people who still harbor some romantic illusions of monarchy in Iran, this should be a vivid reminder. And then, of course, came later the killing of, these are just examples, okay? Every one of you perhaps could have equally well produced other examples. The killing of the Mujahideen and Fedayeen members in April 1975, exactly 50 years ago. This particular one was orchestrated in a plot by a top Savak official whose name was Parviz Sabiti. I will come back to him soon. But people's resolve endured. It took a while, but it culminated in 1979 in the revolution against the Shah. Monarchy fell. You can see it says Shah Raft, means Shah left Iran, that is, for the second time, not for the first, but for the second time. Okay. But before he left, he did one thing. On this stage, he demonstrated and proved to the people of Iran that he was forever the enemy of Iranian people. Forever. The struggle succeeds, but the will of the people is again, I will come back to it and why this happens. For a third time, it was hijacked by the genocidal mullahs. Volumes have been written about this and said, but not everything, of course. Here you would naturally ask, why does this happen? How does history act in this really cruel and weird fashion? In his book, The 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, Karl Marx famously observed that history repeats itself the first time as tragedy, the second time as farce. This profound statement, which is of course now in textbooks, as a meditation on the French revolutions of 1789 and 1848. First, the overthrow of the monarchy, then the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, was not only a comment on political recurrence, it was a philosophical appeal to the physical principle of causality. It's a bedrock of physics, the idea that every effect springs from a cause, and that history is governed by chain reactions of error and betrayal. Viewed from this lens, Iran's modern history is painfully instructive. The 1979 revolution, ultimately captured by theocratic despotism, began as a genuine struggle, an uprising, a collective cry against a monarchy that has turned into a modern tyranny. The Pahlavi regime, with its Savak apparatus, trained in the dark art of surveillance and torture, sowed its own demise, its own collapse. This brutality and arrogance of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's rule created the very vacuum into which Khomeini and his political cohort surged, unleashing a reign of terror that endures to this day. Masoud Rajavi, pictured here, was only released from prison a few weeks before the revolution succeeded. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the cause and effect Marx has alluded to. Now, Iran stands again on the precipice of change, when an evolutionary path forward from history, it actually exists. We have been discussing it since this morning. But as the saying goes, when the stars come out, so do the bats. This time, history not merely repeats itself, it spews the past. What it brings up is not a coherent narrative, but a toxic mixture of revisionism, opportunism, and betrayal, an amalgam of historical artifacts woven into the fabric of lies and deceit. A clique of grotesque wannabes, those regurgitated monarchists and long-dormant former torturers of Iran's youth, skilled in the art of deception and treachery, they are at it. They are the noxious mix of chemicals when history throws up. Men who have not held an honest day's job, not even an honorable graveyard shift at a 7-Eleven. One claims that he could not have been a torturer because he was trained in law. This is not only hollow, it is grotesque. History offers parallels, grim parallels. Hans Frank was a German lawyer before he became the Nazi governor of occupied Poland. He was hanged in Nuremberg for his crimes against humanity. Legal training is no inoculation against moral depravity. But finally, the long arm of the law at last may now have been wrapped around his neck. These unrepentant charlatans of yesteryears now make actually bets with the Revolutionary Guards. They harbor dreams of coronating the killers of Iran's youth. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the monarchist Machiavellian dream. Okay? This is their proto-model for ruling Iran. This is how they want to gain power. Question is, why? Why we may be here? It may be for the lessons that you and I refuse to learn over and over again. It is when we ignore these lessons is when and how we surrender ourselves to the vicious cycle of brutality and betrayal. What are those lessons? First, Iranians of all masses thoroughly rejected monarchy in their ranks in 1979, period. Lesson number two, that they paid in blood of Iran's youth, forged in the crucible of torture, rape, and execution. But foremost of all, freedom is never bestowed by dynasties on foreign patrons. It is earned through sacrifice, resistance, and unbreakable commitment to justice. These are not merely words for a class on politics, but these are things which are now being practiced. Has anybody learned these lessons? Is there really hope? Of course, in this convention, in this gathering, these are merely rhetorical questions, right? Why? Because it is here that history now acts as a distiller. Okay? Just as any parent knows that when a child throws up is the human body's attempt to rid itself of toxins, the current historical spew is a manifestation of Iran body politics ridding itself of the remains of diseased organs. This distillation is absolutely necessary to accelerate the progress toward the establishment of a free Iran. Now, the ultimate question is, as I also said at the beginning, whom does it? There is only one group right now, as we speak, which has crystallized all of these above lessons into action, into practice. It has a historically accurate roadmap for a democratic future in Iran. It has an evidence-based approach to resistance, and also importantly, it has a government which works in exile. Before I turn to my concluding slide, I like to sort of share a thought, one which sort of derives from my professional strength. Newton's third law is the bedrock of classical physics. Okay? All of those people who have taken physics in undergraduate, in college, I am sure must have seen it. In fact, you act it every time you get up from the bed, from your chair. Okay? It is the Newton third law that pushes you up. Okay? For every action, there is a reaction. Every reaction is a response to an action. We interrogate the world, this I do in my job, the universe, by the responses we receive from the interactions in the physical realm. To understand what mujahideens are, what NCRI does, you merely listen to what the words the regime utters and how it reacts. Now, the new Iran will not have a need for an icon of authority, culture, or religion. Iran's liberation will not be paved with the ill-gotten gold of people's treasury, and it will be written in the blood and tears of those who shout, "We shall free Iran." Thank you.
با درود به پروفسور صادقپور و تشکر میکنم از نقطه نظرهای ترقی خواهانتون، به خصوص تعهدی که به تلاش برای برقراری آزادی و دموکراسی در ایران دارید. شما در یک زمان کوتاه یک تاریخچه بسیار گویا رو مرور کردین، درس‌های بسیاری توش داره. با تشکر از شما. ولی همچنان که گفتم صحبت‌های شما پروفسور غریب و پروفسور تسوجی و حضور دانشمندان و متخصصان برجسته کشورمون تو این اجتماع گواه درخشانی از اینکه جامعه علمی ایران با نفی شاه و شیخ سرمایه بزرگ مردم ایران برای آزادی ایرانه. از شما مجددا قدردانی میکنم. مجددا از پروفسور غریب و تسوجی هم قدردانی میکنم. یادتون باشه که همه سوالات من از بابت این بوده و هست که علم خودم اضافه کنم، چون جنبش ما به علم و دانش و تکنیک بسیار نیازمنده، بسیار احتیاج داره، بسیار از اون استفاده میکنه، زیرا اینها نبرد ما رو در مبارزه با دیکتاتوری مذهبی و هر نوع دیکتاتوری 100 بار قدرتمندتر میکنه. مجددا تشکر.
Thank you, Professor Saderpour, for your insights into the forces shaping Iran's future from grassroots activism to strategic transition. Ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing the end of our program. We have 3 final segments. First, we are going to hear remarks from Mr. Guy Benson. Mrs. Rajavi will then give her final remarks, and I will close the program with a short reading of the declaration of the 2025 Free Iran Convention. Now, I would like to turn our attention to Mr. Guy Benson. He is a political editor, national radio host, and news contributor whose work bridges journalism and public engagement. Please join me in welcoming Guy Benson.
Well, I must confess that I feel unworthy of being the final speaker in this incredible lineup, but thank you so very much for inviting me to this gathering. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you for inviting me. For those of you who are not familiar with me or my work, my name is Guy Benson. I'm the political editor and a political commentator and a radio host, as you just heard. I appear on national news programs. I reside here in the D.C. area. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and my own beliefs alone, not, as it happens, as a subject matter expert per se. We've heard from many of those today. Many of those esteemed the guests that we've heard from over the course of this morning and afternoon know far more about the evils of the regime in Tehran than I do, and they are undoubtedly better equipped than I am to discuss the prospects of a free Iran, a goal that we all share. What I can tell you, by way of background, is that I am an American citizen, but I was born not far from Iran. I arrived in the Middle East to American parents just over half a decade after a group of fanatics tragically seized control of your beloved homeland. My father has relayed stories throughout my life about the terrible days, for example, of the Iran-Iraq War and the very real threats Americans faced when we were living in that region. Many of those threats, of course, were traceable to the regime in Iran. My parents also told me about a secret one-woman rebellion staged by my own mother on the eve of our final departure from that country where we were living. At the time, and until quite recently, women were not allowed to drive. My mother is a very sweet, mild-mannered woman. I don't think she would necessarily embrace the label of a feminist, but she thought it was absurd the way that women were treated there, in addition to not being allowed to get behind the wheel. So on her last night in that country, she put on a Yankees hat and sunglasses, and she drove around the housing compound for a few minutes. Very uncharacteristic for her to do something like that, and I'm proud of her. It was her own miniature protest, this act of defiance. And if she had been caught, she wasn't, the consequences would have been relatively modest. It was a small, symbolic risk that she took. As I've learned subsequently, of course, the perils to her life or freedom paled in comparison to the abuse and the subjugation that courageous Iranian women have suffered through the years as they have thumbed their noses at the oppressive rulers, the monsters who run their country. I share that anecdote simply to convey that from my very first days on this planet, events in the Middle East have shaped who I am and what I believe. I also mention it because I find it fitting and inspiring that so many of the important leaders of your movement are women, indeed one particularly remarkable woman. In an era in our politics of cheap posturing and a lot of empty rhetoric, Iranian women demanding freedom and equality is, in a word, heroic, true heroism. I'm here today because I unequivocally share all of your righteous vision for a free, secular, democratic, non-nuclear Iran, as determined and secured by and for the people of Iran and no one else. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know when I say that for years these goals have felt righteous and worthy, but still distant. But to echo a theme and a refrain that we've heard articulated by others here today, I believe that hope, real, justified, urgent hope, is warranted in this moment. Since October 7th, 2 years ago, the world has realized that the head of the snake of terrorism lies in Iran, and has also seen the utter weakness of the Iranian regime, as well as the desire of the Iranian people to reject that regime and seek freedom. The regime has been exposed as a paper tiger, or rather the regime has exposed itself as a paper tiger. They are the architects of their own humiliation. While the exposure of this weakness on a global stage has been vital as a geopolitical breakthrough, paving the way, I hope, for more regime-isolating peace accords in that neighborhood, I also pray that that embarrassment to the regime echoes and is echoing powerfully among the people who have been oppressed by that regime for so long. A regime that abuses them, imprisons them, tortures them, murders them, and for what? To steal and spend untold resources on a nuclear program that has been dealt a massive, crippling blow, on a military that crumbled under pressure this summer, on terror proxies that are falling and collapsing like dominoes. Their propaganda is also imploding. Their bravado has been punctured. So for all the evil that you have witnessed and your loved ones have witnessed through the years, through the decades, and that the world has seen over the last 2 years in particular, these have been catastrophic strategic blunders by the regime. I think history may well look back on October 7th and its aftermath as the beginning of the end for these people, both as a cancerous force within the Middle East and also, crucially, within the eyes of its people. And it is those people, the good people of Iran, who deserve justice, freedom, and a country whose future is controlled and charted by them, not swapping one form of tyranny for another, mind you. Others have spoken to that, including the Speaker. There's no appetite for that. There should be no interest in the West for that, but rather genuine self-determination, something that we take for granted in this country. We have no idea sometimes how fortunate we are, and we should be inspired by the sacrifice of people in your country who are striving for what we have. This is what free people everywhere must wish for the oppressed people all across the globe. Anyone who professes to stand for human rights or for women's rights or fighting against tyranny, I believe among those people it is a moral requirement to speak out against the regime in Iran and on behalf of the people of Iran. On behalf of those who are oppressed and intimidated and assaulted and executed for supposed crimes as decreed by an evil, illegitimate cabal that rules through fear and without the consent of the governed. They hail sometimes their fallen comrades and allies as martyrs, when in fact the true martyrs are their victims. May their tormentors' days, those victims' tormentors' days, be numbered. And as I alluded to earlier, I believe they are. I'm not alone. The American people are behind you. Please know that. The American people are behind you. A bipartisan majority. For those of you who pay attention to American politics, you know bipartisan majorities aren't always guaranteed these days. But a bipartisan majority of the U.S. House of Representatives is behind you, as expressed in House Resolution 166. Many of you are familiar with that. It is a morally clear and powerful document. It has the backing of a majority of our House of Representatives across party lines. How fantastic. And on the subject of solidarity and optimism, as I was preparing for this event, I sought the counsel of a man that I respect a great deal. He's an Iranian-American scholar. He's joined my national radio program numerous times through the years, educating me, educating my audience about the evils of Iran's regime and, crucially, the resilience of the Iranian people. So when I spoke to him a few days ago, he encouraged me to offer words of hope and encouragement here, especially because he believes there is great cause for both right now. In fact, I saw him on the West Coast a few weeks ago, and I told him off the air, I said, I don't remember ever seeing or hearing you this upbeat about the prospect of a free Iran. And he looked at me with a twinkle in his eye, and he simply nodded. This is a man who has studied these issues as closely as anyone in the world, and I respect him. So his optimism is therefore my optimism. And in accordance with his advice, I'll leave you with this thought. Over the last few years, I've personally engaged in a number of battles for the soul of institutions and movements that I care about. I won't get bogged down in those details. They're not terribly relevant here today. But suffice it to say that some of these fights have felt decidedly uphill at times. People in my orbit, my friends and others, sometimes have wondered aloud why I'm bothering to even have these fights. Oh, it's lost. The place is lost. Give up. Why shout into the void? Move on. And I say, I've spoken out. I've dug in because I love these places. I refuse to simply give up on them, even when things have felt hopeless or frustrating. So the struggles that I just referenced differ greatly from your cause, not drawing any direct comparisons. That's not my point. But my point is a parallel that I do see, which is the imperative to never give up and never lose hope when it comes to an institution or a country that you treasure. Nothing in life and nothing in history is permanent. I'm sure that through the decades since 1979, some critics have urged dissidents, people like you, members of the Iranian diaspora, to just maybe move on. Resistance is futile. That has certainly been the message from the regime. The despots have always counted on despair and indefinite submission achieved through coercion. And to your immense, eternal credit, you've never acquiesced. You've never given that submission to them. The submission that they demanded, you have refused. One must never merely shrug or surrender to complacency, especially as it relates to something about which one cares deeply. You all have never stepped aside. You have never walked away. You have never disengaged. And now, after so many years of setbacks and anguish and death, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that the tide has turned. And justice is not just remotely plausible, but increasingly realistic. So my parting prayer is this, that in our lifetimes, we will gather together again for precisely this sort of conference. And we won't do it here in Washington, D.C. We won't do it in New York. We won't do it in Paris. We won't do it in Brussels. We will do it in a free, thriving Tehran. And God willing, not if but when we have that gathering in Tehran, we will have a conversation not about what might be, but what has already been achieved. Thank you all so much. God bless you. God bless the people of Iran. And God bless my country, the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Besson. For your support and solidarity with the people of Iran for a free and democratic republic in Iran. Thank you very much. با تشکر از آناهیتای عزیزم که بسیار بسیار عالی این جلسه رو مدیریت کرد. با تشکر بسیار زیاد از صبر و مقاومت شما یاران این مقاومت در اون سالن که این همه ساعت نشستید و خستگی ناپذیر با روحیه بسیار بالا حضور دارید و با تشکر از خواهران و برادرانم در اشرف 3 که ما رو توی این کنفرانس در این آقان و قیامش همراهی کردم. اگر اجازه بدید من چند جمله خلاصه کنم. Dear friends, let me use this opportunity to express my heartfelt appreciation to everyone in this important convention, to experts from my country who now live in the United States. Thank you for your support, for the resistance and your commitment to the future of our enchained homeland. You are helping to build the foundations of a new Iran. A free Iran based on knowledge, justice, and compassion. I also wish to sincerely thank the distinguished dignitaries for standing with the Iranian people in their struggle for freedom and democracy. Your presence here today sends a clear message. The world hears the voice of the Iranian people's struggle and recognizes the courage of a nation that will never surrender to tyranny. Our resistance is not about taking power. It is about the freedom of a nation and giving our people the right to decide their own future. What we offer is not only a political change, it is a new beginning for our nation. A nation where young people find opportunities in universities just instead of being suppressed or pushed into exile or prison. A nation where women and men stand as equals and Iran's vast human and natural resources are used for its own people instead of being used for repression or warmongering. The people of Iran deserve a country that is at peace with the world, a free Iran and a democratic republic built by the abilities and talents of its citizens. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Benson, for your very heartfelt remarks. I want to thank Mrs. Maryam Rajavi for spending her time so generously with us today and attending this conversation. We truly appreciate it. I also want to thank the freedom fighters in Ashraf 3 for joining us and giving meaning to our convention. Thank you for being with us. And now I will read a small excerpt from the Declaration for the Free Iran Convention. As Maryam Rajavi, President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, has declared, the only legitimate solution is regime change by the Iranian people and their organized resistance. The NCRI and its leadership have consistently rejected foreign military intervention or the appropriation of funds by outside states. They rely on the Iranian people. Experience of the past 47 years shows that in the context of Iran, change will not come from within the regime through civil disobedience or even other forms of unorganized mass mobilization. Change requires an organized internal movement prepared to make necessary sacrifices. In this regard, we honor the resistance units of the PMOI-MEK for their courageous actions to shatter the wall of repression and prepare the ground for a new popular uprising. They are a driving force for democratic change. We reject the regime's propaganda and that of its allies, claiming there is no viable alternative. The people of Iran overwhelmingly demand a democratic system and reject the monarchical or theocratic dictatorship. In our view, Reza Pahlavi represents a relic of the past and is in continuity with his father's authoritarian rule, given public statements and platform proposals that revive instruments of repression, including proposals resembling a revived secret police or militarized domestic forces, and above all, his declared contact with the IRGC. His proposed plan is a manifesto for new fascism. With this understanding, we affirm the NCRI with the PMOI-MEK as a principal component presents a credible democratic alternative to end the current regime and to establish a republic based on Mrs. Rajavi's 10-point plan, which articulates a transitional process leading to free and fair elections within 6 months of the regime's overthrow and guarantees gender equality, the separation of religion and state, freedom of speech and assembly, and peaceful coexistence in the region, and a non-nuclear republic. And the final point, it is long overdue that the international community and democratic governments recognize the Iranian people's right and the resistance unit's right to oppose tyranny and to resist repressive forces, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which has been designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States. Democracies must uphold the right to resist and to support the Iranian people's aspirations for freedom and self-determination. Thank you.